Hey, if you weren't able to visit Lauren's new solo exhibition, Invasive Species, in person, we thought we'd do a little walkthrough gallery talk with her.
Hi, I'm Lauren Selden. I'm a professor at Stephen F. Austin State and an artist myself, and it's been an honor showing at the Cora Stafford Galleries here at University of North Texas. So this exhibition is called Invasive Species, but it's actually a collection of two of my bodies of work. One is called the Returning Home series, which you see the first of that over here, and the other part is the Invasive Species portion. So this is a decent place to start. This piece started in about 2015. My parents moved out of their family home, and I found it to be traumatic to see that building leave. And I thought about all of the memories that are encased inside of a place that we live, and then also trying to remember actual layouts and places. And so I started to create these works using really, really thin, precarious wax, and I would fabricate those with a wax pen. And then I learned some lessons about kind of some problems with casting that then eventually I started spruing each of these works in a way so that I would have areas where the building looks like it's destroyed, or it looks like there was, some kind of explosion in my garage here. And so I liked having these cast forms look like they're hundreds of years old. So this is in bronze, and then with a steel base. And so then as we go around, if we stick with the returning home work, all of these buildings are places that I've lived in, and so I tried to fabricate these again from memory. Each one of them has little titles about the places that I was in. This particular one was from Arizona, and the first week that I lived there, it was an apartment, and the first week I lived there, the pizza man that delivered the pizza said, "I lived here," and it was a huge apartment complex, and I was like, "Cool." And he was like, no, I lived here in this apartment. And so this one is called I Lived Here. And so I was thinking about the architectural advances in the early 1920s, and especially thinking about Le Corbusier, and then how in the United States especially we use these for things like public housing and dormitories, apartments, things like that. And I lived in so many of these structures. So thinking about the memories that are sealed in here, and then also the economic divide in architecture and the ways that we lived. And so this is another one that was actually just the first floor, because that's the only part that I spent time in. So it's a two-story building. All of these buildings are buildings that you can't even really find on the internet because they're not beautiful. So most of these had to happen from memory as well. They're all up on stilts, and this is coming especially from living near the Texas coastline and watching hurricanes destroy so many houses, and then houses being rebuilt again. And so I was thinking about those things after visiting Brazil and seeing comunidades up on the mountainsides. These became like these geometric faceted forms that are then holding these houses up, hopefully safely from metaphorical harm. And this particular one is welded stainless steel. All of the other ones that are off-white are welded steel and then painted and distressed. And then all the castings, again, are bronze casting, done with metalworking and Jory's traditional lost wax casting process. And then I mess with the spruing a bit so that they look rougher than what they should. This is the only house that I haven't lived in, but it was an important enough location, and it was during the time that I was working on all of the other ones. This is the Bear Art Center in Hofsøs, Iceland, and I did a residency there. And then I was particularly wondering why I was interested in these bases. And so this is six-sided. You can see it really well in our shadow here. And this is based on the rock basalt, which you can find all over the world. But I've seen it in Iceland, Northern Ireland, and all over the U.S. as well. So kind of seeking out these basalt faceted forms. So this is the conversation crossover between invasive species and returning home. Both of them, I think, make the most sense for a collaborative show. Invasive Species started with the idea of wanting to hide from things years ago, politics or social situations, and I started to research plants that go dormant or can hide for long periods of time and then come up whenever it's safe outside. And then this has transitioned after COVID, and after spending a lot of time outside and realize how important that is, I started to use this organic image with, again, my geometric image. This particular pattern is taken from 2 summers ago whenever I did a residency in Fiskars, Finland. And so if you think you remember the term Fiskars, it's our scissors with the orange handle. But then they made tons of farm equipment, and then their industry changed dramatically post-industrial revolution. But they made everything for the home, everything. So it's just an absolute dream of a place to visit. They still have contemporary craft makers that make and sell their work, and then Helsinki supports it as a tourist attraction. So it was really important for me to try to put that pattern, which is especially in fibers, this geometric pattern that we often see a lot of places. And so that is mixed into that hollow construction form. The base is copper, and it's all hand fabricated, scored and folded and silver soldered. And the top is sterling silver and all silver soldered, and comes from cast and fabricated parts in order to make the floral form. So I think this is my favorite one. We don't need to pick favorites, but this is my favorite one. And this is really recent. This was made this summer. I like the way that the fold forming incorporates like this line. I love how that just incorporates straight into the line of the organic form. This organic form is composed of little vines that I cast, pieces of sterling silver wire that I forged, and then plastic flowers that I also cast, and then thorns that I would, lay into transition. So I really have enjoyed listening to the material, allowing things to melt and fuse, and then making these new forms that maybe look like that they already exist until you start getting closer, and then you're really confused as to what is this invasive, weird thing. And they keep being these solitary forms that come along. I think that's still going back to that idea of dormancy and some of our recent years of isolation and us trying to figure out how to handle that. So then this is also the rest of the collection of that series of works. So these are all new. And my guess is that I'm going to keep making these, and I will probably keep installing them in even more abstract ways where they're like these little stones that are on the wall. And so all of these are built in the same way. The only thing that's different, these are both copper and fabricated. That last one was red brass. These are all still sterling silver with a variation of, again, fabricated parts. And then these particular ones are some Bodark wood that I had in my studio for years. And it is amazing wood. I'm wondering if I kind of got it close to the point of dried where it was borderline petrified, because it's dense and it eats up sanding tools and grinding tools. But this is really important wood in my region as well as many regions, because Native Americans used Bodark to make their bows. It's really a powerful, strong wood that doesn't fracture. So I also tried to leave some of the bark and some of the places so that you could see that wood. And this is also going to transition into some of these being built with mokumegane, which is our pattern grain, wood grain metal, is what it's called. And so I'm always using a little bit of mokumegane in my work. This show doesn't have it, but it will. And then this piece here is, I would guess we would say this is the starting point again for the full invasive species side. So in 2019, I created this work, and I was thinking about being a mom and the challenges of when to push your kid to do something in a safe environment, and how hard it is whenever they're having a hard time accepting it, and like when do you step in, and so that this is what I drew after watching my daughter try to overcome a fear, which she overcame. But this one became really important to me because of the shadow. I love that the actual piece is put in a hopeful space where it's reaching towards the sun, but the shadow is sorrowful and sad. So I've been thinking about that a lot in all of my works, and how the shadow plays into the piece. And then the other piece, if we want to talk about shadows, over here, and then we'll come back over there. This piece is actually an older work from, let's see, 2015. So I guess about the same time period. The other one was 2016. This work was whenever I really started to think about water, which is an undertone of all of this work, and our concerns about rising water, pollution, any number of things. But I kayak and paddleboard, and so I've spent a lot of time on water, and it's always been present in my life, but then also something that then I think is something to be concerned about for the future. So I did a series of works of a couple of different animals that were endangered due to rising water. I 3D scanned a replica sea turtle, and then I cast those using the cheapest possible 3D printer that I could, because I wanted to see all those lines, and I wanted the viewer to know that these have been 3D printed. So the part of the idea is, these are being saved in this wheelbarrow, but it's that idea of whether technology is going to solve all of our problems anyway. And so that's a hint to that. Those are bronze, and then steel fabricated base and steel fabricated wheelbarrow. And then finally, these two works are, again, inspired a lot by my travels to Finland. And so this is the most recent, but I'll explain this probably because it makes a little bit more sense to explain this one. I was right on the edge of beautiful preserved woods that Fiskars keeps, and it's really big for tourism, for mountain biking, so there's trails everywhere. And I was in the woods and saw a big area that had been cleared of trees, and then they had all of these greenhouses, tubes, around little oak trees. And so I found it to be, it knocked the breath out of me whenever I came across this clearing, because this is the first place I've been with, they have exceptionally clean air, exceptionally clean water. I had spent time swimming in the lakes. Everybody's proud of their environmental practices there. And then whenever I saw these growing oak trees, I thought it was powerful that it's hopeful that they're growing again. But I also thought it felt like I had come across a cemetery. So it felt like there was this massive loss as well. And so that hit me especially hard because Uvalde happened 2 days before I flew out to Finland. And here I'm leaving my daughter with my husband at home, and thinking about the impact of all of these things on our children. And so this particular piece, I just picked one of those tubes that I saw, that I photographed, and I mirrored them, which you can see here. You can see that then I mirrored them to create like this picket fence feel. And then I left one of them in black and white imagery and one of them in full color. This is laser cut acrylic sheet is what the shape is. And then the imagery is printed on with a UV printer, which I had access to at Anderson Ranch in Colorado. And so I really enjoyed playing with that. And then we were thinking about fabricated landscapes. And so this has that fence appeal, and still has the feelings that I had whenever I was in the forest. And so then finally this piece was what I drew the day that I left the forest. My plan is to make more of these and to have an installation in a large space. The concrete base has the subtle engraving of Uvalde right there. And I didn't want it to be extremely obvious, but I wanted you to be able to look for it. The flower is a kind of illustrated version of a daisy for that symbol of innocence. And you can see shell casings at the bottom if you look right over the daisy. And the shell casings is for all the people who died in the shooting. And the whole tube, you know, which is supposed to be the thing that's keeping this daisy safe, it's being held up with a yardstick. Again, just as that reminder of the major pressures that we have in our education systems in the U.S. and that parents are now having these fears of their children, you know, growing up in this society. So the most beautiful and hardest thing that I saw about this is that the first time I exhibited it, I saw some young people that were all about 19 years or younger, and they were all standing around it like this, and in such a way that you would in a morning stance. And I just thought it was such a powerful thing to see people who have been in school systems, who have been affected by this their whole life, and then viewing this work and trying to figure out what that meant. So all of these things, which are heavy pieces of content, and I try to approach them broadly so that viewers can still bring their own past to it. And I try to leave things open for interpretation. So I really enjoyed showing this work together. This is the first time that I've seen these two bodies together, and I really was waiting to see that. And so I will be continuing with these two veins of work, and look forward to showing them again. Thank you so much for the opportunity, James, and everybody at UNT, and this has been wonderful. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can hear from me when I post future videos. Thanks for stopping by.